Welcome to the How to Raise Money podcast for anyone who wants to raise other people's money for a business or property venture. Right now, there has never been more money on the planet, and there has never been more opportunity. This podcast will help you put the two together. So, if you need money for your business or property proposals from banks, lenders, angels, whales, or dragons, this is the podcast for you.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the How to Raise Money podcast. My name is Ray McLennan.
And it's with me, Nigel T-Best. Raymondo, how the devil are you? Nice, well, chilled out, relaxed demeanor today?
Absolutely. Why would we not be? I mean, we're having a what they call an Indian summer, very warm.
Do you know what, Ray? Hey, if India only has summers that last 3 days, I'm not going. I'm not going. That's all I can say.
Well, it's very warm here today from central England. I think it's meant to be touching 30 degrees or something in September, which is good. At least keeps my wife away from the heating controls. As soon as it goes below 25, she's straight in there.
Yeah, I know. It's like living with tenants, is it?
Well, yeah. No, you can control them from an app on your phone. That's easier.
Well, I was going to say, normally heating controls involve leaving the door open or the windows open.
Yeah, that's true.
And then leaving the building for an indeterminate amount of time.
Yeah, so that you can heat the garden and the street as well.
Yeah. However, no, tenants are lovely.
All right. So what we're going to cover today is another top 10 one. We'll do a few of these top 10s because people quite like them. We get emails and messages saying that they like these and also like to repeat them at the end. So we will talk about them now, we'll talk through them, and then we'll repeat them at the end. And as usual, Nigel and I will do them sort of alternately. So we'll cover about 5 each. Okay, so the top 10 tips for making the perfect pitch to investors. So number one is you want to decide who in your team is going to present your business. Now, this can be a pitch that you're going to do online. It can be a pitch that you're going to do in person. It can be a pitch that you're going to do in a video, something like that. But you ideally want to have someone to present that's reasonably competent. And as a general rule, it's sort of the most senior person in the business, but sometimes it can be someone different. Now, if you're a startup, something like that, then it'll be yourself. But if you've got other people on the team, then you ought to include them as well. So decide who the best person in the team is to present. So that would be number one. And we go, again, like all of these things, we go into much more detail in the courses that we have and much more detail further as you go into the How to Raise Money website.
Yeah, and also something like this, we get asked quite a bit to judge people's pitches as well. So if that's something you're wanting to do, we show you the step-by-step techniques, and then we can give our opinion, a bit of feedback on the presentation. But that number one, always think of it like The Apprentice. You've got someone who would be really good, and obviously they don't pick them. They pick the mumbling, stumbling person who effectively torpedoes their own boat below the waterline immediately. But number two, talk to the organizers of the presentation event to find out how it all works. How long do you have? What's the format? Those sort of things. Because the last thing you want to do is turn up with your 800-page PowerPoint presentation that lasts 2 days with no breaks, and then to be told, right, you've got 3 minutes. So always find out the format, because it is a skill in itself to pare down a pitch down and down and down from, an hour to 15 minutes to 10 to 5 to 2 to 1 to 1 sentence. And you need to be able to cover all of those eventualities. So that's number two. Timing and format.
Yeah, just to give you an indication on that, Nigel, when we used to organize live pitching events, this might be, we're talking about 10, 12, even 15 years ago, it would be that a presentation could get 20 minutes. It'd be a 20-minute presentation, and then there might be another 20 minutes for Q&A. So you'd have maybe 3 people presenting. Then again, about 8 years ago, that got narrowed down to a 10-minute presentation. So it was 10 minutes to do your presentation. So the scenario would be in a room with maybe between 20 and 40 investors that would go there for a specific event to see pre-qualified, pre-chosen pitches for business or for property. And they would do a 10-minute pitch, in which case they had usually no more than about 20 slides that they would go through, and then the Q&A at the end. They would cover that off. That then got narrowed down to 3 minutes. So then it became a 3-minute pitch. And now it's a 1-minute video is what they want to see. They want to see a 1-minute video in advance. And that 1 minute has got to get across the sort of salient points to allow them to go to the next one. So it just shows you that, you know, with social media, with phones and all the rest of it, our attention span has absolutely shrunk just in the last 15 years, massively.
Yeah, and that would definitely, Ray, that would definitely fluster you and make you think, how the hell am I going to do this? If you've got 20 minutes and then you turn up and say, right, where's your 1-minute video? You'd be in the car park pretty toot sweet, wouldn't you, trying to cobble something together on your phone? So find out the timings and the format. That's number 2.
Okay. Now, number 3 is, I suppose, how do you dress? How do you present yourself? I have seen presentations where people come and they're wearing a suit, and it's clearly the first time they put a suit on in their life, and a shirt and tie. And I've seen others that wander in shorts, T-shirts, swigging a can of Red Bull or Monster or something like that. And you might think, well, that's terrible, but it actually depends on the context. I mean, there have been some people that have turned up in fancy dress as well. Now, when I say fancy dress, the guy had got a suit made with all his logos on it. It was one of the, you know, there's places you can go and get these 3-piece suits made. So it was green, I remember. He had this green suit, green waistcoat, shirt and tie, green trousers. And he had his logo all over the slimming thing.
Don't tell me, was he selling snooker tables?
No, he wasn't selling.
Oh, right.
You know, I can't actually remember what it was, but
I won't ask where the balls were.
I can't remember what it was, but I do remember it stood out quite a bit. So, but again, it's the sort of thing that you want to, I suppose, ask the organizers. And if you're a bit uncertain, these days, smart casual always works. It doesn't necessarily have to be a tie, because they will judge you anyway. As soon as you walk up there, if you're doing a presentation in a room of, I don't know, between 10, 15, 20, 30 people or whatever it is, as soon as you walk out, they're going to judge you anyway. They're going to judge your shoes. They're going to judge the belt you're wearing. Does the belt match the shoes? Are you wearing a tie? Are you not wearing a tie? All of these things will be going through their head anyway. So I think the most important thing is to dress what is comfortable for you. Again, smart casual can never go wrong. It's comfortable for you, but also what's appropriate. So if you are doing something that's a bit wacky and zany, and you've got a suit with all your logos on it, well, again, is that going to make you stand out? Well, it might. And if you look at, again, we all talk about Dragon's Den because it's the pantomime version of what goes on for real. You'll see people come out, and mostly they're sort of smart casual, but occasionally you get someone that stands out, like Levi Roots, who came out playing the guitar, for example. So, but his dress code was absolutely fine. What he was wearing was fine. And then his presentation obviously hit the nail on the head. So dress code, yeah, find out how you're expected to dress, but be comfortable. So that's number 3.
That's number 3. Number 4, make sure, folks, that you've got everything ready the night before. Make sure that, prepare for eventualities. So there's no plug for your laptop. They don't have all the right connections. Your laptop is a Mac or a PC, and they've got different things. Make sure you've got all the connectors, the adapters, the cables, the wires, everything. And then do not rely on a Wi-Fi connection. Ray, when we did that presentation, do you remember we went down this long corridor? When we got there, we said, oh, this is going to be great because you're going to get your phones out. And everyone in the audience went, you don't get a signal down here. And it was kind of, oh, that's interesting. But what did we have? We had loads of other material, loads of other stuff that we could do, loads of other ways of being able to show it. And then one of the things you can do as a backup is have a paper copy, because sometimes people want to demonstrate things, and some people like to have a paper copy and they scribble little notes as they're listening to the presentation, or they circle things so they can come back and ask questions. People like that sort of thing as well. So just make sure in your Sport Billy Omnisac, and if you don't know what that is, Google Sport Billy cartoon. But he had an Omnisac, and in that Omnisac was everything you could ever need. And that's what you need for these presentations. The number of times I've been to a presentation and I have lent other presenters bits of kit that they need in order to make their stuff work is really quite shocking. So make sure you're not in that boat. Make sure you got everything ready for all eventualities. So that's number 4.
What the organizers will do, though, the organizers should give the people in the audience, the potential investors, they should get a sheet of paper that has sort of a one-page summary of what it is that you're doing. And there should be room on there for them to ask questions as well, to write the questions down. And there should be room on there for them to write out notes, and they can take that away with them. I do recall, and the advice we gave to everybody was just as you have said there, make sure you've got a paper backup that is literally a one-page summary or something that you can hand out. And I do recall one presentation where the guy, I mean, people arrived early. He arrived early. He went to set up. And as he was setting up, it was clear there was something wrong. His presentation wasn't showing. We were having all sorts of challenges. So he decided to go last because he was then going to wait to try and fiddle around with it and see if he could get it to work. He didn't get it to work. But what he did do was he had enough documentation to hand out to people. I mean, it was quite nice. The brochure sort of thing he had, it was like a card, a colored card. An A4 size colored card with information on both sides. And he said to people, look, I'm having a problem with the presentation here, but on the card in front of you, if you look at number 1, just look at number 1 and I'll explain that in greater detail. Now number 2. Now if you look at the picture 3. Now if you go to 4. And he did quite well. He did okay. So yeah, Nigel's absolutely right there. Prepare everything you'll need the night before. And Murphy's Law, if it can go wrong, it will go wrong. All right. Number 5 is, make sure you arrive early and make sure that you get everything set up and everything working in good time. We did have an occasion many years ago where I did a presentation on behalf of a company because we were doing it in London and there was a tube strike or a train strike or something like that, and virtually everyone was running late. Most of the investors were there, but they were still trickling in. But the guy who was due to present, or the guys, because there were 2 of them, due to present, it was clear they were going to be late, but they might get there in time for the Q&A. So I did their presentation because I'd coached them through it. So I knew their slides and they'd already sent them on in advance anyway. So I did the presentation, and then with absolute perfect timing at the end, when I just finished and said, that's the presentation. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce the 2 founders of the business here. They're going to come up and do a Q&A. And they literally had came in, you could see they'd been running, and they just came in right up to the front and went, right, first question. So it worked out perfectly. But make sure you get there early and make sure you get everything set up. So that's number 5.
This next one all depends on how confident you are about presenting. And for some people, their confidence is low and they use a crutch, and that crutch is often PowerPoint or something like that. And you just got to be careful on anything like that, that you don't, there's nothing worse, and we've all sat in the audience, nothing worse than having a PowerPoint presentation where the person then reads out everything that's on there. It's almost as if it's almost going back to school, isn't it? When the teacher doesn't believe you can read for yourself or you won't pay attention. So they're going to doubly make sure you do it. It can be deeply frustrating. And also, anyone reading out loud is never going to be at the same pace as you reading yourself. And so you always jump ahead. So think about your confidence with PowerPoint. It might be that you use PowerPoint as just little aid memoir, just headings. Maybe it's a picture. And this comes back to your confidence with the overall presentation and how well you know it. And it's practice here, folks. It's practice. And the more you can practice, the more you can pare down that PowerPoint presentation so that it's not 200 pages with masses of writing, loads of numbers and all the rest of it. It's got to flow. Put yourself in the audience's shoes and think to yourself, geez, is this a bit dry or is this a good one? You know, just be careful with each slide that you put in there. Don't do the old 70s sitcom one of doing some slides and then there's a picture that, oh, how did that one get in there? You know, don't do your Alan Partridge on that one. But it's something, folks, that as you get more confident, you will find that as soon as you see a picture, you're into the story, you're into the point, you're making it and stuff, and then you can draw attention to something that might be on the handout. And that just comes with a bit of practice. So always, like all of these things, how would you react if you saw that And there's nothing, again, on PowerPoint, nothing worse than looking in the bottom corner and saying number 2 of 263. Your heart sinks. So just be careful with that, and maybe just get practicing so it's more of a flow. And the PowerPoint just adds to your delivery. It is not the delivery. It adds to your presentation. So that's number 6.
Number 6. Okay. Well, number 7 is timings. So make sure that you turn up on time, make sure that you start on time, and then most importantly, make sure you finish on time. I have seen pitches. I mean, usually when we were facilitating these things, I'd be at the back and I would say to them, you know, I had a card that said sort of 3 minutes left, which I'd just hold up number 3, number 2, number 1, and then I'd be like, get off. Yeah, that's it. And I only remember one instance where a guy just kept going on, and we just had to cut his microphone off. You know, just cut his microphone. It's like he just was completely oblivious. And it wasn't the best presentation either. I do remember him as being quite arrogant when he was presenting, because he'd previously worked for big companies that had hundreds of millions. And now he was doing his own thing. And he was only looking for a paltry 2 million, you know, and it was piffle, you know. But there's a massive difference, to sidetrack for a second, but there's a massive difference between working for an organization that has hundreds of millions and doing it for yourself. Massive difference. And he did literally crash and burn, not just because of his attitude and running over time, but because of the presentation he did, which was clearly, I mean, he actually changed it from the one that we practiced, which was another cardinal sin. But so it was no surprise he didn't get anything. But when it comes to timings, you must finish on time, because the guys in the audience and anyone watching it, they know how long it's supposed to last anyway. They know it's a 10-minute pitch. And if it starts going beyond that, they just get fidgety and they look to me to sort of, you know, get this guy off type thing. But thankfully, it's only happened on one occasion that I can recall. And I do remember someone saying, when you're presenting, if someone's going to follow up on you, do not be a thief of time. Don't steal someone else's time. Because if you take your 10 minutes and you go into 15 minutes, then the next guy, to make it finish on time, he's got to cut his down. And that's the last thing you want to do. So don't run over time, be on time would be number 7.
Yeah, very true. Number 8, when it comes to questions and answers, be polite. It's amazing. It's incredible to actually watch when somebody asks what you would think is a really quite reasonable question. The person goes into extreme defense or attack mode and really throws it back. And this is, think of Pop Idol or X Factor, when they say, yeah, that was quite nice, but you can't really sing. And it's not a case of anything other than, how dare you say that? And the, you know, security are coming in as some 7-stone woman is about to rip the eyes of Simon Cowell out and what have you. That's not the way to do kind of Q&A or receive feedback. So you got to think to yourself, be polite. And here's a thing that sometimes, in order to give your brain time to think of what they're asking, why they're asking, and what your answer should be, it's always great to put in a little phrase to give yourself a few seconds. And one of the best ones to do is not to go, no, you're wrong, but just if you say to yourself, or even say out loud, that's an interesting question, that very phrase gets your brain thinking, I wonder where they're coming from. And you might want to add to it and say, you know, that's an interesting perspective. May I ask a little bit more about why you're asking that? What are you thinking? Now, that throws it back to them in a very polite way, but it gives you time to then process, crikey, where are they coming from? What do they want to know? Do I have a good answer? And it just gives you a bit of time on that. So it's always a case of be polite, because manners maketh man, an old phrase, and woman. And it's always nice when you feel you can have a conversation with someone and they are not, you know, arrogant, as you say, Ray, you know, with that chap, or annoying or snappy or aggressive or anything like that. They're really quite good. And the other thing is, when it comes to Q&As, if you don't know the answer, I would always say, look, actually, that's a brilliant question. I can see why you're asking it. I'm really annoyed that I haven't got the answer for you, but I'll get it. And if you like, I will forward that answer to you. when I get a moment to get it for you. Don't make it up. The one thing that investors, Ray, they can smell a mile off, it's people making answers up, isn't it? And and when they do, oh, they come in for the kill. So don't ever think that you're a sort of an Agatha Christie type writer of crime things where you can weave an amazing story, because they will just rip you apart when you start making
I do recall one, and we promote this as a way of doing things, is to put a password protected page on your website for investors, and to include a frequently asked questions page in there, which you can add to. So you can log in and you can add in the question there that's been asked. So that's always a good way to do it. All right. So number 9 is if you are doing a live presentation, you will be in a room. Well, usually there's 2 rooms. You're in one room that's got the screen and the chairs and all the rest of it in sort of theatre style. And then there's usually a breakaway room for snacks and nibbles and drinks and that sort of thing. And that's what we used to do. We used to invite investors along once a month. They'd come along and they'd see 3 pitches. They'd actually go to other pitches where there were speed pitching, but that was a different event. But to the ones that we did for property, they would get 10 minutes to pitch or 3 minutes to pitch. And then afterwards, there'd be a chance to network, to be a chance to chat. And actually, that's where quite a few of the deals got done. Because when the person who was presenting came off stage, let's say, they were a bit more relaxed. What I would do is I'd be going through the documents where the investors were saying they were interested in that one or they were interested in that one. And then I would introduce people. I'd say, hey, John, meet, Mr. So-and-so who's one of the investors who's expressed an interest. Why don't you tell him a bit more about yourself? And the idea there is not to repitch. The idea there is just to answer the question, ask the investor, what is it they do? How did they get into investing? Ask a bit more about them. And that's good networking. Because we've had quite a few occasions where investors have handed the cards out and said, well, look, I didn't like this presentation, but I quite like you. If you've got anything else in the future, here's my card. And that's a valuable piece of real estate, as the Americans would say. It's a valuable thing to have. So yeah, if you get an opportunity to network, then actively do so. If you find yourself standing on your own and there's a bunch of angels there, look at the body language. They'll usually leave a gap, which suggests that they want someone to come and chat. You can walk over and just say, hi, how are you? I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Have you got any questions for me? Something like that. Or if you didn't like it, why didn't you like it? And a lot of deals got done that way. Also, though, the opposite can happen. We did have one guy who hit the wine quite quickly afterwards because he was a bit nervous, knocked back 3 large glasses of red wine, and then suddenly started to slur. And actually what happened is he had a number of investors that were interested, and a couple of them came over to me afterwards and said, that one, I've changed my mind. I've been talking to him over there right now, and I don't think we could do business together. So be careful. But yeah, if you do get an opportunity to network, take it. So that's number 9.
And number 10 follows on neatly from that one, Ray, because if you do have a conversation with somebody and they do ask something or they hand out their card to you, make sure, folks, make sure that you follow up with the investors. So if you said you're going to give an answer, if you've said you're going to give them a call, if you said you're going to touch base with them or whatever, management speak phrase you want to use, make sure you do. It's one of it's amazing, Ray, when you look at it. I know they might be seen as old-fashioned ideas, but arriving on time, looking smart, being prepared, being polite, and if you say you're going to do something, do it. They are all key elements still for a vast majority of investors. And when you start blowing those sort of elements and making a mess of things, you just get a little cross or a little dot on your card. And it only takes, as you say, Ray, it only takes a few before they sort of go, do you know what, there's just a few little niggles that are beginning to creep in here. And I think I'm changing my opinion. So, if you say you're going to do something, especially following up. So if someone says, I'm interested, make sure you get the details, make sure you get their name, make sure, a convenient time, put it in the diary immediately, get these things sorted so that you can just prove your point that you are an investable person, because you do what you said you were going to do. And that's what people are after. They're not asking for huge things. They're just asking you to do what you said you were going to do. And if you can't do it, don't say it. Because,
Wise words from the
you know,
wise man.
it's obvious. It's simple, isn't it, Ray? But sometimes we forget it. And in the heat of the moment, sometimes our mouths can run away with us and we can promise all sorts of things. And then you realize, oh my goodness, what have I said? Who did I say it to? You know, walk around. If you need, we've all got phones that you can write things on, or take a little notepad and pencil. You know, even if you're on stage and you're doing Q&As and someone asks a question and you didn't have an answer, just say, I'm just going to make a note of that because that's great. I'll make sure I'll do that for you. Those things people like: organization, polite, you know, professional people. That's going to be a way to help win the deal.
Okay, right.
There we
So
go.
that was top 10 tips for making the best pitch you can to investors. So I'll run down them again. Almost want to have the Alan Freeman music in the background here, you know. Dun, 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 dun. Here we are, folks. At number one, here we have. Right, decide the best person in the team to present. So number one is who's the best person. Number two is make sure that you've liaised with the organizers and you know about how it all works, the timing, etc., etc. Number three is how should you present yourself dress wise. Number four is make sure you've got everything ready the night before. And number five is timing. Make sure that you arrive early and you set everything up in good time. It's the same whether it's a Zoom call or whether you're pitching in person. And number six is, as Nigel was saying, you don't have to use PowerPoint. If you are using PowerPoint, no, don't have 250 slides and use PowerPoint with great care. Pictures are better, and then talk. Do not read from the slides. So that is number six. Number seven, if you when you're pitching, please stick to the times. Turn up on time, start on time, and whatever you do, make sure you finish on time. Number eight is when it comes to Q&A, always be polite. Don't get sidetracked. Don't get angry. Number nine is make sure that you network with all the people that are there. And then number 10 is follow up without fail the next day. So that is the top 10 tips for making the perfect pitch to investors.
Excellent. Ray, some gold in there. And for anyone out there that wants to get in touch with us, make sure you go to the website www.htrmoney.co.uk. And what we'll do is in the show notes, we'll have a list of this, but also you will see on the website, you can get in touch with us, but you can also download some of the free resources, guides, and also some templates there for you. And also have a look at whether some more in-depth training that really hones in and goes to, you know, really digs deep on this. See if that's for you, because I know it's helped a lot of people as that sort of training, and it may be the difference for you as well. But Ray, excellent stuff. Excellent
as always.
Stuff. Yeah.
All right,
so,
good.
All right. Is that
I've
it?
been Ian McLennan.
I'm still Nigel T. Best. That's your lot, folks. It's time to go do something else.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the How to Raise Money podcast. It's made for people who want to raise money as debt or investment equity for their business or property proposal or empire. See you next time, where we can show you how to raise money. There is abundance. There is money enough for everyone on the planet. The question is, who has yours?